Welcome back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It's season 5. Once again, the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men and a Garden. Pete, I think it's funny because I went to the women's volleyball game. It was yesterday, Saturday, as you're listening to this a couple days ago. And there were a couple of Billikens.com posters, or not one Billikens.com poster, and then one regular, not regular fan, but a fan who listens to the show. And both of them mentioned how often or how much we've got them addicted to Two Men in a Garden. And I couldn't be more proud of that fact because man, it's just the best salsa I've found. It's my favorite salsa. Even if I can't find the exact right consistency that I normally like, just a little pulse in the magic bullet, and it's the right texture for me, along with the right flavor. So, Two Men in a Garden, they've got way more than just salsa. They've got pickles. They've got partner products. Go hit them up. They're local. Their stuff tastes great. You can hit their website at twomeninagarden.com. But you can also follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, we have some men's basketball news. We have some tangentially related women's basketball news, but man, this one is going to be big time soccer episode.
It really is, Zach. We're probably gonna blow through the basketball news pretty fast because there's not a whole lot to get into there. But the good news is we have 2 soccer teams going, and you're right. There is plenty to discuss with both of these teams, and I think there's going to be some pretty exciting seasons ahead.
This week, Pete, it occurred to me that I am past the time where I can attend every Billiken game in a week. Right. It is just sitting on those bleachers, and I don't want to get into a tiff about the facilities. I don't want to do that right now because we got actual sports to talk about. But it's tough to sit out on those Herman Stadium bleachers, man. And like the kids will run up and down the aisle, which is fine if they weren't like just rattling the entire section of bleachers with every step, which is, whatever. But again, it's great to be back at Herman Stadium. Unbelievable weather this week. The weather gods were smiling down on the Billikens. It was weather as it ought to be.
Yeah, that's right. After having some weird weather the week before, some lightning to deal with,
yes.
It looked absolutely perfect for those games this weekend. So yeah, you could have asked for any better.
Before we get into it, though, as I promised, men's basketball. There's some recruiting news. We've got a lot of visitors scheduled here.
We do, and most of these aren't like, this isn't breaking news, right? Like,
yes.
Most of these we've known for a couple of weeks, but I was just kind of putting it together and realizing we've got 5 guys coming up. And what prompted this is I realized the first one, Jaden Vance, is visiting this week, August 29th to 31st. So, take it for what it's worth. But Ryan F. over on the Discord shared that he's being recruited harder by SLU than anyone else right now, and that the Bills are in really good shape with him. So he's going to be the first one to hit campus this week. Next week, September 3rd to 5th, Jordan Tillery will be coming in. September 12th to 14th is Isaiah Seeley. He's a big-time player. We're actually competing with Arkansas for his services. Coach John Calipari, if you've heard of him before, is now in hot pursuit of Seeley. And then on September 26th, Adriel Nyorha will come through. We're also still waiting to hear confirmation on a date, but we think Dietrich Richardson from Peoria is going to come down in the next month or so as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. I did check last night and couldn't find anything about a date for him, but that's five that we know are going to visit pretty soon here, Zach. And we'll start to see, early this time, the shape of the class of 2025, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, they had a lot of players on campus this weekend when I stopped in for the women's volleyball game. I believe Coach Putz was out there in the Champion Center giving a tour to a a tall gentleman and his parents. So, yeah, they also had that camp. They had an elite camp this weekend.
Well, yeah, that's what it was, right?
Was it?
That's
Oh, I
yep. It was like their whatever they call it. That I don't know if it was the team camp or the elite camp,
yeah.
but I did see mention of that just today actually. So I know that they had a lot of recruits out for that. I'm kind of stalling a little bit because I'm trying to scroll down and find the tweet where I saw it, but I'll catch it soon enough. But yeah, they did have that this weekend. So they'll follow that up with individual visits after having a bunch on campus at the same time.
For those that are loyal soccer fans, Billiken soccer fans, you already know this because you heard at halftime at halftime of the game against Indiana that the next open practice for men's basketball will be on September 27th.
Yeah, this is great, and it's when was the last one? Was it
It was still
early
tank top
July?
season, so it was
Or
yeah.
yeah, mid late. Yeah, I can't remember. It was in July. So this will be, the team will be much further along
It
now.
was after the
Um,
gear sale because I wore this.
okay, all right. So it was in late July, we'll
Yeah.
call it. But so yeah, it'll a couple months further out. You got to imagine this team is going to be a lot more sort of dialed into what they're going to be doing. And by the way, it was the St. Louis men's basketball elite camp. So it wasn't a team camp, but yeah, I've got one photo of it and not really able to identify anybody within it, but nonetheless, yeah, they had a bunch of guys out this weekend for that.
On the women's basketball side of things, I mean, this news came like I feel like every so often you get a tweet and you're like, whoa. And this
Yeah.
was a whoa. And that's that Lisa Stone is getting back into the coaching game. And I think this is a fantastic hire. And I think you agree. She's going to be head coach at Washington University, St. Louis.
I agree that it's a fantastic hire, Zach. I think she could really crush it at that level. I think she was doing pretty well at SLU. I think that's kind of easy to forget because they never made a tournament in her tenure there, but
She was exactly what they try to pass off the Travis Ford era as at SLU.
right.
She raised the level.
Yeah.
She raised the floor, but
Yeah.
couldn't raise the ceiling.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there were some NIT appearances. There were plenty of records that fell during her time there, and some big win totals and things like that. But they just couldn't get over the hump and into the tournament is what it came down to. And there's no question that she's a great coach. She's so experienced. She really understands the game. And now, like her kids are all grown up. They're adults. She's been in retirement for a couple of years. And I don't know how this kind of thing came about, but as soon as I heard that, I was kind of like, oh yeah, that could really work. Like that,
Yeah.
that seems like, because that's a program that's been an absolute powerhouse in the past at certain, times. And I see no reason why she couldn't absolutely win a ton of games at that level. So I think it's a great hire. It's cool to have her back in St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean, she had 12 years at Wisconsin Eau Claire, which is a Division III. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I believe Wash U is Division III.
they are. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of where she cut her teeth. So, again, I think the idea of Washington University's women's basketball team is, high level student athletes. And I think Lisa Stone recruits that. That's the type of player she looks for.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, she'll thrive there. As Majera said back when she was hired, like she's just a really sharp basketball mind, and I think it's a great hire for WashU. I can't imagine it, not working out. Being a total flop. I'm not saying like, oh, she'll win national championships right away, but like I don't know. I can't imagine that being a flop of a hire, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those, it's like it's a no brainer, really.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
Let's talk men's soccer, Pete, because what an absolute statement win this Saturday was to kick off the season. However, the Billikens were not getting a lot of love going into this season in the preseason conference awards.
Zach, I was kind of surprised right away that we only had one player on the preseason all conference team.
Yeah.
And it's a transfer, right? It's Joey Mayer from the defenseman transfer from Indiana. And as happy as I was to see him on there, it was kind of like, well, I don't know. I just assumed we would have more guys on there, right? We've had so much talent.
I mean, Carlos Leatherman was excellent last season in a down year.
You got the Andersons back.
Missed, yeah.
There's a lot of Floriani. There are a lot of players that you kind of thought like might somebody was going to grab a spot, and nobody did. And then in the preseason polls, Zach, SLU was number 2 to VCU in overall votes, also second to VCU in first place votes. VCU was number 1 with 5. SLU was number 2 with 4, and then Dayton third with 3, and Loyola Chicago fourth with 2. And then from there, it's Fordham, UMass, Davidson was number 7, Duquesne, Rhode Island, George Mason, St. Joe's, GW, LaSalle, and then last place, not surprisingly, Bonaventure in the preseason poll. So I think what we're seeing here is people just really don't know who that top team is. And I think there's a lot of parity in the top half of the league. And Zach, before we get to this Indiana game, the last thing I'll say is just that there were some really good results this week in the first couple games of regular season play. You had VCU knocked off a ranked team, didn't they?
Yeah.
We had another team tie a ranked team. I'm pulling up the results right now.
By the way, while you're pulling that up, George Washington's field is way too nice to not have lights on it. And I'm sure that it's some sort of ordinance.
They don't have lights right there?
I don't have lights. Unless they have them behind the main stand, behind the camera.
There's like
I didn't see any. I didn't see. So like it's you can see that other side and there's the hill. And there's no light posts.
But that's all their stuff up there. That's like their athletic campus.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why they don't have lights.
Yeah, that's surprising. But
because I always feel like they play day games too.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm picturing every game we've played there has been a day game that I can think of.
Yeah.
On weekdays too.
Yeah.
But yeah, VCU knocked off number 15 Wake Forest 2-1. It was Fordham who tied number 17 Hofstra. Dayton blew out Detroit. Rhode Island shut out St. John's. Loyola did lose at Michigan, 1-0, so not too bad. And then UMass tied Siena. But overall, that's that right there kind of shows you like, okay, like the top half of the league actually is pretty good. This is now with SLU's win, 3 games that the A10 either won or tied against ranked teams in the opening weekend with no losses to ranked teams. So yeah, the bottom half leaves a little bit to be desired. There were some bad results down there. But the top half of this league could be really good this year.
Yeah, they don't have lights, by the way. Every one of their games this year is at 1 p.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like Wrigley Field before the mid 80s.
Yeah, I don't necessarily, again, like you gotta have lights. I don't know. Maybe I'm outside my depth there. But yeah, I think the Billikens took this disrespect and they might have gone into this Indiana game with a bit of a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, Zach. Any way you can motivate a team certainly helps, but they won 2-0 against Indiana, number 7 in the country.
God, you got to keep the listeners around, Pete. You can't just give them the whole cookie right away. You got to get in the.
I give them the whole cookie, and then while they're chewing on it, we
yeah.
Then we'll give them their nutrition.
Yes, I like it.
So this was on Friday the 23rd, as you said. It was an incredible night for soccer. The attendance was over 5,700. Actually, a little closer to 5,800, I think, when all was said and done.
It looked like that concert in Germany for Taylor Swift.
That's right.
There were people spilling out onto West Pine. Spilling out onto Laclede.
On top of the Olive Compton garage.
Yes,
every balcony on the Marquette Towers were full.
The people were standing outside. It was like the veterans came home from war. There was ticker tape. It was crazy.
It might as well have been.
People were standing on top of the village roofs. Crazy.
It might as well have been because SLU looked great, Zach. Like I
Yeah.
never once in this game did I think that Indiana was the better team. They were playing on their heels. SLU was organized. They
Yes.
were aggressive. They were not making many mistakes at all. They were just really sharp in their passing. Everything they did looked really, really good.
Yeah.
And it was kind of incredible because I was thinking back to like last year and they weren't all that sharp a lot of the time. And you think of some of those early season games like SIUE and stuff where we thought like, man, I thought we were going to be a little bit better than this. But it was all there now, which was great to see in your opening game.
Yeah. Like you said, 5,700. I mean, the amount of people there was crazy. It was starting to look a lot like that UCLA game, or no,
Mhm.
sorry, not UCLA. It was Long Island, Brooklyn. I can't, the colors are the same.
Right.
I
Yes.
mean,
Stu thought it was going to be over 6,000,
yeah,
just kind of the eye test.
you got to call in the fire marshal.
Right.
Yeah.
The official number has to be a little bit lower, maybe.
Right. See, so I'm gonna give away a great idea for free here. This is one of those where you wish they would come up with some seating on that hill on the West Pine end.
Mhm.
And I think I think they should do luxury suites up there. Just use some of the staging from Chaffetz. Put up some canopies. That's what I'm
So,
saying.
wow. Okay. Now, what about on top of the soccer
The hill. I think
facility
you could do.
itself
Up on
on the
the.
Laclede side?
Dude, I've been saying that should have like an alumni only bar. Like
Yeah,
you should like big donors and alumni should be up there. Like that's
sure.
like you can go up there and get I don't know. That would be sweet. I don't know how you get
Yeah.
up there though. But yeah, no, I think it's one of those where I think it's something that SLU's going to need to like kind of monitor, and because I mean that it is, again, like I said in the open, it is not that fun sitting in that packed of a just bare bones bleachers. It's just you kind of huddled and kind of bent over a little bit. You're hunched
Yeah.
over. It's not that great. So
Yeah.
I mean, if they're gonna keep
I may have,
drawing this well.
right. I may have found a spot to stand for a half,
Oh, I
I'll
did. Oh,
probably,
I
yeah.
always stand. I stand on a rail. I find anywhere.
Yeah.
I can't sit.
Right.
Um, but anyway, speaking of the large crowd, Matthew Roble got that crowd uh hyped up early in the 16th minute when he scored from the middle of the box on what was really kind of a cross that was broken up, and he kind of collected it and slotted it past the goalkeeper. Luis Lara made a great run on the left, cut in towards the goal on the end line to draw the keeper out, and then put the ball right in front of the empty net. Indiana had one last defender who broke up the initial pass, but after the fail to clear, as I mentioned, Roble gathered it, turned a couple times, and finally found a lane to neatly put the ball in the back of the net.
He didn't have to put a whole lot on it by that point, luckily, but it was a little frustrating because Lara, as soon as he made that run and got the keeper out, and you saw like one, two, three white shirts right there, right? And there was the one red shirt, and you just thought goal. So
Mm-hmm.
when it wasn't an instant goal, it was like, oh no, did they really break this up? Did he put it
Yeah.
like behind him? Like what happened here? It just took a couple extra seconds to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So that wound up being a little bit of a ride. But yeah, thank God Rowell was able to make something of that because Lara really deserved an assist on that for what he did.
60th minute, Joey Marr got the initial touch off a Seth Anderson free kick. By the way, the Andersons were dangerous in this game. There was one where the Billikens would have had a play on goal. However, they called it offsides. A replay showed that might not have been the case, but
Yeah.
the Andersons interchange play the entire night is a revelation, and I think is going to be truly massive for this team going forward, Pete.
We talked about that last year. Like, how much are we going to see them, with the assist and the goal kind
You
of
you
switching
say
spots there?
you say when I love when you say we talked about something,
Yeah.
because I have no recollection of us talking about
Well,
anything.
it,
I
it,
already
the,
forgot what we talked about in this episode.
but I don't think it ended up happening last year. And then here we have in game one,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's happening. And then, the offside call came through, but they looked great. They were super sharp. I mean, as much as we said the whole team was really crisp in their passing, those two have another level of chemistry. And that's
Yes.
that's really coming through the season in a way that we didn't quite see it fully come through last year.
Yep. Well, anyway, not his goal actually, but um, he got the initial touch off a Seth Anderson free kick from the outside of the right corner of the box. But it was an Indiana own goal in the end. Again, would have loved to see him get credit for the goal against his former team. You got to do the muted
Yeah.
celebration when you score against your old
Yep.
mates.
Yep. Yeah, you do. It was pretty
Who was that?
subtle what he
Kovacic,
did.
you did it with City against Chelsea the other week.
I
You
think,
did
I think
the
you're right. Yeah, yeah. So it was really subtle what he did here, and it was just a kind of like on this cross, he kind of had his boot behind him and got it off the bottom of his cleats, right? Like just put a little tap on it. And what that did was redirect it. So the Indiana defender just reacted as quickly as he could, stuck his left foot out, and just chipped it into the far corner of the net. And then the keeper was helpless there. So it was a bang bang play, and if you just watched it in real time, you would never see what happened. But luckily, I was able to kind of like pause and then drag the cursor back and forth and kind of watch what actually happened there.
Are
It's
you a
almost like,
rewinder mid game?
oh, well, no, this was on
Oh,
when they finally posted it on
my buddy Tony's a
Twitter.
huge rewinder mid game.
No, I
Like
do.
we'll be watching like City, and they'll score, and then he'll go back and look at the replay. I'm
Yeah,
like, or a save. The worst is when it's just a save, and you're
yeah,
like, dude, they're
right.
playing.
Get us back live here, buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are we
No,
doing?
I generally don't do that. I generally don't. But on a replay, especially like if I'm putting a note together for this show, it's
Yeah.
kind of like I really want to understand what happened on a play like that. And it was pretty cool what he did there. However intentional it was, it's almost like he deserves an assist on that own goal, even though it wasn't his player who scored it.
But
So yeah, it was really cool.
Well, you mentioned the replay, and I'm pulling my phone up not to, um, you know, uh, take away from my attention from the podcast. What I wanted to look up is how many instances of the goals that we have on Twitter, right? How many replays they tweeted out, and I mean, I love you've got the goals from the videos from the real time, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That they uploaded, I guess, from a phone, or however, I don't know how they
sure.
upload it anymore. I'm so far behind that. But then you've got obviously the video or the movie trailer esque highlights, and then you've got the individual broadcast feed goals, and that's something that I like the broadcast feed goals. I want to see it as I remembered it, where I can see how it all
Yep.
came together. So a big shout out to the social media. By the way, they also showed Gaby's. We're going to talk about it later, but Gaby's goal against BYU, they had the drone out
Yep.
there, and that was fantastic. I love that stuff.
That was really helpful to really see the
Yeah,
lead up in that, and kind of what she did to create that goal, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But I on this one, as much as you like, yeah, the setup and everything like that, this was a free kick, right? So there wasn't a whole lot of like, oh, who gave it to who. It was just bang bang. So to have whoever was standing there probably with a phone on the end line there is really what kind of helped me see what happened, because I don't think from the broadcast angle you could really tell exactly what transpired there because of the angle that the ball ultimately went in at. So it was helpful to have the end line, but I think your bottom line is to have multiple replays available in multiple different formats is really, really
yeah.
helpful.
And it's fun too. I mean,
Yeah.
after a game, all I've wanted to do in the last 30 years. Well, hold on. When did the internet come up? Right. So the last 20 years or so, right? Of
Well, it's
of
it's been it's been
watching.
over 30 that it's been public, but probably less than 30 since we've
Yeah,
actually.
I think, like you looked at the history of me on like YouTube. I was putting up highlights before anybody. Like I always want to go back and see how the goals were scored. I want to relive that in
Yeah.
the following, hours and days. So that makes me as happy as anything. So
Sure. Yeah.
I definitely wanted to shout that out as well.
Yeah. And I think maybe the best highlight might have been the next one,
Oh,
Zach.
by the way, our goalkeepers this week have been on another level.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Because in the 82nd minute, Indiana was awarded a PK after a Max Floriani foul in the box. By the way, do you find it funny that we had a goalkeeping coach as a head coach for 10 years? And we've never had a goalkeeper. We never had goalkeepers as good as we've had in the last 6 with Tofern, Schulte, Abenel.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I know. Yeah. But Abenel really looks the part.
Yes.
In this game, he was great.
Yes, he was, because he made an incredible save, diving to was it his right or his left? I thought it was his right.
It was his right.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Left from the,
diving to the
kickers.
left.
Yes.
And
right.
And then he made a save on a crossing attempt into, whether it was a cross or a shot, doesn't matter. He made a play there. Slew then cleared it and kept the clean sheet.
Yeah. It felt like in those last 10 minutes or so when Indiana was really scrambling and throwing everything forward that they could.
That's when
he just felt like he knew exactly what they were going to do.
Yep.
Absolutely unfazed by everything they did. Starting with that PK and then everything they threw into the box after that, he was more prepared than their forwards were for it. So really, really smart, impressive play by him, especially in those last 10 minutes, but he looked great the whole game.
And that's what it's going to take to compete with the top 10, right? That ability to not only go up by a goal or more, but the ability to withstand the high powered attacks as they throw literally the kitchen sink at you.
Yeah. They had a free kick. What was that kind of star player's name? I'm forgetting already.
Mar?
No, Indiana's.
Mar. There's a Mar on Indiana.
Yeah, I know, but it's not him. It was another guy. But anyway, he put a rocket of a free kick into the into frame basically in the last few minutes, and Abenel punched it away pretty coolly. They wound up with a corner after that, and again couldn't get anything off of it. But that one I thought was just as impressive as that PK save, or almost anyway.
Yeah, it was fan. It was a great save. I just really like what he's brought so far, especially in this last Indiana game. I liked him last year, and remember he was high. They were excited about him last year when he came in. I mean, he had the pedigree of playing over in France. I believe he played with Pogba, or was it Mbappe? No, Mbappe. I think he played with Mbappe as a youth.
But so they knew he had that ability. I don't think he was really the issue last year. I think the goal scoring was a much bigger issue. But this year, I don't remember him looking this good in one game. This was. But he did. Really, they were switching on and off, so he didn't. That's also true.
Yeah.
Yep. Also true.
Pete, write us on the stats in this one.
So SLU only outshot Indiana by 1, but 6 of those Indiana shots came in the second half. It was 8-7 on the game. I think most of those were pretty late for Indiana. Shots on goal were 3-3. Corners, SLU had 6, Indiana 3. Fouls, SLU 13, Indiana 7. No home cooking. Same ref, I believe, that had the
God. This guy was freaking awful.
He liked himself quite a bit. But
just the amount of yelling he would do at players.
Yeah, he really liked to give them a little lesson on the field.
A dictatorial, as Bill McDermott would say.
It really came. That's right. It really came through on the broadcast too. Like you could really see him taking his time communicating with guys and look, I'm all for a little bit of communication to kind of just draw lines and just be clear. But this guy was really relishing that role a little bit too much, I think.
He was frustrating.
Yeah.
What's the stat? What did the stats look like, Pete?
I just ran us through
Oh,
the
did
stats
you?
deck.
Sorry, I was so angry with whatever that ref's name was.
Yeah.
Next up for the we did we talk about the not receiving votes?
We did at the top of the
Yeah.
of the yeah.
Well, they didn't.
The top of
They
the
did not
segment.
make the top 25.
Right.
So that is upsetting.
Yeah. So that's as of
Today.
today, right? That they
Yeah.
refreshed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy to me because I gotta think they're one of those teams that's at least on the national, even though they didn't get any votes
The
the previous
legacy. Well, they
poll.
were a legacy last season, so maybe
Yeah.
maybe they're kind of cautious about
They
this
they
season.
they burned some voters last year.
Yeah.
Because they were what, like number 10 coming
They
into
did
last
not
season?
they did not properly represent their constituents.
Right. So now they have to earn that trust back, I
Yes.
guess.
Yes.
But starting the season by beating number 7 at home is going to, I think, be a good start. And yeah, Zach, next up, they've got another opportunity to keep that going.
Yeah, and again on the road, SMU always a tough place to play. It feels like for the Billikens. Not only do they have a good team, but also it just feels like, that road trip it's like going to Charlotte for the men's basketball team back in the
Right.
day.
So it's always a tough game.
Yeah. Also tangentially related news, uh, passed down from our guy Carter Chapley is that Brad Davis will be joining the scouting staff at FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy news. I didn't know what he was doing. I had heard a few years ago that he had joined the Scott Gallagher staff, and I wasn't sure, I hadn't really heard since then, what Brad was doing. He's obviously been retired several years as a player. But living in Cincinnati and Carter being the writer for the team and everything, I just didn't see this one coming. So all of a sudden when he's like, "Hey, Brad Davis is around for the
Yeah.
team facility," that was pretty cool. That was news to me. Brad obviously being a St. Louisan, went to Chaminade, SLU. That was my era, right? He was a year older than me and only stayed 2 years, so we overlapped for one at SLU before he went pro. And I had quite a career, quite a pro career. One of the MLS leaders in a lot of different categories, or at least he's in the top 5 in a few different categories just for his longevity there. So to have him now as an MLS scout for the local team here is pretty cool. I don't know whether he's moved out this way or not, but scouts don't necessarily have to relocate.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on the pod, by the way, Brad.
We'll work on that, Zach.
Yeah,
we're
gonna get that. We're gonna make that happen.
Yeah.
The women's soccer side of things, in the rankings, they slipped. United Coaches poll 23rd, down from 12. And then in Top Drawer Soccer, they dropped 7 spots from 8 to 15. Pete, let's talk about this 1-1 draw against BYU on Thursday.
Oh, you're just gonna give him the score up top, Zach? Just writing that.
That's a good point. You know what? Fine. Fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good.
It is absolutely fine to do it that way. It was another beautiful night, as you said, and you were in the house for this one too. So,
I was, yes.
You were one of the over 3,800 that were in attendance.
Yes. By the way, there was it did not occur to me how many Scott Gallagher, St. Louis FC players there are the amount of jerseys and kits that I saw is incredible.
Yeah, I guess we should say, I think this was true for both the men's and women's games this weekend. It was free admission for any youth player wearing their club jersey. When they say club, I don't know if you could have shown up in a CYC.
Or if it has to I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could.
Right.
I tweeted out. I pulled out my Cougars jersey. I didn't put it on because it didn't fit anymore.
Yeah,
which was it was disappointing.
It's not because you're in bad shape. It's
no,
grown up.
Yeah, unfortunately. Give us the nitty gritty in this BYU game.
Yeah, so it was a great night weather-wise. 19th minute, Emily Gaby with the vintage Emily Gaby goal.
Yes.
Defenders making contact, off of her. Quick left foot to the far side of the net, ended up falling backward into a somersault after letting go of it. She really created it by herself too, Zach. She took it from a BYU player about 5 yards outside the box. It was kind of like lobbed backward from another BYU player at midfield. I'm not quite sure what she had in mind with this play. And the last defender couldn't really gather it before Gaby took it from her, and the others just couldn't get to her fast enough. Kind of a crazy, quick, weird, botched play, but she made the most of it. I thought right after that, Hannah Sawyer was given what seemed to me like a pretty harsh yellow.
I didn't like it.
She ran
That's
into
my girl. I didn't like
yeah,
that shit.
like the player in front of her kind of stopped and she ran into her. She had her arm out. Maybe the
Yeah.
arm was the difference. Like, is it a foul? Sure, it's a foul, but a card is ridiculous. But then a few minutes later, she got taken down from behind, and there was no card at all, not even a conversation. I just didn't understand that at all. To me, that was an easy yellow.
Yeah.
So this ref who we've already talked about was pretty frustrating. But SLU did take the 1-0 lead into halftime, and BYU didn't get on the board until the 68th minute. It was a perfect through ball to Ali Fryer, who's a pretty dangerous player up top. Emily Puricelli had to come out of the box. Fryer put it past her and finished in the empty net. Puricelli kind of hesitated just a little bit on her approach, Zach. And I
think
wonder
that's
if
been
that
the
was
one thing that we've seen with her on occasion has been, uh, kind of indecisiveness on whether to come or not.
yeah, and maybe that's maybe that's kind of a weak point, right? Is
Yeah.
because she faced quite a few more shots in this game and looked pretty comfortable on all of them except this one,
Mm-hmm.
where she actually had to come out of the box a little bit, and
Yeah.
so it was a little bit of an awkward play, but it's not just Percelli, right? I think there's a few SLU defenders who'd like to have this one back too, because
Sure.
this was a long ball into a zone with a lot of white shirts, and they all just kind of stepped the wrong way at the wrong time. They timed it wrong, and the ball just got through. And they had to be pretty frustrated about what happened on that play, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, like, again, it's BYU. I think we're looking at this game, right? And in a vacuum, it is what it is. It's a tie against BYU, but you look at the unfortunate scenario of the rain shortened game against KC, and this turns into a game you kind of wanted to have.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it would have been a big statement game, number 4 team coming into your place. They beat SLU out there last year. It was 3-2 on paper, but BYU was, I think, pretty clearly the better team in that game, especially early on. It took SLU a long time to settle into it. So to come out early and get the goal here was just a much different tone from the start, right? BYU, I thought, was really physical this whole game. They got away with even more physical stuff in the second half than what we'd mentioned in the first half, including a couple on Gaby. And refresh my memory, but wasn't one of those in the box too, Zach?
Yeah, I thought one of West Pine Bills texted us that Gaby got cleaned out in the box, a no call.
Yeah, and then
I thought
there was
so.
there was another one where she was kind of coming down a little bit closer to the wing, not in the box yet, got taken down. And look, I know she's a forceful player and moves fast, and it's not always going to end up pretty when she loses the ball, but like
She's got an elite swim move.
an elite swim move.
Yeah, like where she goes
Oh,
over,
gotcha.
like
Yeah, the arm.
like an NFL lineman.
Sure.
Yeah.
She's quick with it too. There was another tackle on Elise Lay late in the game that I think would have given SLU a free kick from a pretty dangerous spot outside the box. But the ref just let it go completely. The whole crowd was yelling at that one too. And even on the broadcast, you could hear that. She, by the way, is that grad transfer from Xavier, and was heavily involved throughout the game. I thought she looked pretty good.
Yeah. The stats in this one, BYU 20, Billikens 11, shots on goal 9, Billikens 7, corners were BYU 12, Billikens 3, fouls were 11 to SLU, 10 to BYU. Pete, I feel like this is what we're going to see from the Billikens this season, and it was kind of reinforced with the Mizzou game, which we'll talk about. But this seems like a SLU team that's really going to look to sit in and strike quick against the run of play and really smash and grab that first goal and then kind of impose their will.
I think you're right, and I think Percelli and how good she is gives them the ability to play that way, right? Like when you
Yeah.
have so much confidence in your netminder, I think that goes a long way to playing like that. She was fantastic in this game.
Oh, she was
Um,
outstanding. Both Billiken goalkeepers this week are the story of the week.
yeah, I mean, she was unquestionably the star of this game too. She didn't just save 8 of 9 shots on goal. The one really that we've already talked about was on goal, but she wasn't in the goal. So she made a couple really tough point blank saves in the second half.
Yeah.
Like saved the game multiple
Yeah.
times. Not just made a routine save. These were incredible saves. We've already talked about how her ability to win awards is kind of hindered by how few shots she faces, but her All-American candidacy was on display in this game where she faced a lot more shots against a really good team. At the other end, Zach, Gaby had 5 shots, 3 were on goal. She's been great, but you do get a little bit concerned about Slew's ability to create chances for other players, right?
Mhm.
As good as Gaby is, you don't want her to become, I don't know, the only kind of focal point. You don't want teams to be able to plan around her, shut her down, and then not have enough answers in other positions, right?
Yeah, and I thought Sarah Sarnowski stepped up a lot on the wing
Yeah.
out there on the left wing. She was really good in this game. Not really looking like a freshman at all. Add in Addie Lang, Hope Kim, Lucy Schartz. Is that Schwartz?
Schwartz, yeah.
Schwartz. Um, God, you're killing me, man. Killing me
Hey,
with
hey,
these.
hey.
Uh,
If spell checker doesn't catch it, what am I supposed to do?
and then is that Kagan Leonard
Yeah.
as well. But Hope Kim also stood out in this Mizzou game, and I think we'll get to that as well. Camille Welker and Riley Howard, transfers from Wisconsin and Iowa, came off the bench and looked solid. We're going to have to talk a little bit about Cammy Welker in this Mizzou game. Unfortunate play in that one. Shields wasn't thrilled with the slow start in this one. They weren't clean in transition and didn't take advantage of opportunities. I feel like in that game, as well as in the Mizzou game, it just felt like there was nothing connecting that defense to that offense. The midfield was really not doing a great job
Mhm.
transitioning the ball from our end of the pitch to the other, and putting
Yeah.
our forwards in a good position to score.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And she also, when she says she was happy with the halftime adjustments, but that BYU wore them down, I thought was an interesting point too, because BYU to me, and not being there, I can't say
Mhm.
for sure, but on the broadcast, they looked really big and really fast. Like so they looked noticeably bigger than Slew. And it felt like that at every position. Like at any time two players would come to a ball, it just looked like BYU was taller. Like they just had bigger players. And I think they really used that physicality to their advantage. I don't know if playing all the way up in the mountains, gives them that kind of like extra advantage when it comes to conditioning, speed, things like that. But I thought they looked pretty fast and athletic too. So when she says they wore them down, I think that's a pretty nice way of saying that they really were physical and they were not afraid to play fast. They were not afraid to play with a lot of contact.
Yeah.
And that was a big difference in this game.
Uh, the Billikens followed that one up with a 2-0 win against Mizzou. As you're listening to this, it was yesterday evening. It was the first meeting between these teams since 1998. 2 years after both programs started. The Billikens won 2-0 in Columbia in 96, 3-1 at home the next year, and then lost 2-0 back at Mizzou in 98. In this one, man, it was I mean, honestly, up until the first Billiken goal, this one looked like Mizzou was going to shock everyone.
Do you think it kind of felt a little like that Kansas City game
Yeah.
where Slew had kind of desperate vibe to
Yes.
the way that they
Yeah.
were
Like
playing?
I think they talked about it on the broadcast, and that Slew has the most important among the teams that can challenge for an NCAA championship. Slew has the most important non-conference. They have to win games, and they have to win them by a lot, especially if
Yeah.
they're not ranked teams. So you look at that Kansas City game, you look at that Mizzou game. You come out and you're jittery. You're afraid to lose. If you lose, your season's pretty much on to the conference season. You can pretty much just throw out the rest of these games.
Right.
So I think you see a lot of playing not to lose. The you know they were playing like it's a must-win game, and that was a bad thing in this one. They were off balance and off the back foot. Felt like they were just not focused on making the correct pass, making the easy pass, making Mizzou kind of. They were so, I don't know. They were playing. They were off balance and on the back foot, and they were playing too fast.
Right.
They were playing too fast while they were trying to make up for it, and then they would get beaten, or they would misjudge a ball because they would overrun it. Right. The
Right.
timing I just don't think is there with this team, and you have an addition in Sarnowski, and then the two Power 5 transfers up top, or the one up top. I think it's Welker up top, right? Um,
Right.
so, I don't know. It could be Riley, could be Cammy, could be both of them. Anyway, so if you keep Caroline Kelly around, then you don't have to make these adjustments. You don't have to find that connection. But with the new players, you've got maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit younger, but you don't have that connection. So that's going to be a process, I think. I thought they allowed Mizzou to play without fear in this one. Mizzou came out like they were going to beat us. They were going to prove that this was they belonged in this game, and they did. I thought SLU was clumsy, over aggressive. It's just a less talented team. I mean, yeah, you can let Mizzou have possession, but like they're going to make errors with less pressure. You don't have to go steal the ball. You can just force them to give you the ball back,
Right.
so to speak. But they took a 1-0 lead into halftime on Hannah Sawyer's first goal of the season in the 38th minute, and almost added a second a few minutes later off a great cross, but she put it just off the outside of the post. I thought it was in. The announce team thought it was in. Everybody at that field, I'm sure, thought it was in. Unfortunately, it just glanced wide. She was helped off the field later on in the second half after taking a bump to the head from a Mizzou player. Also helped off the field and then seen on crutches, according to the broadcast, was Camille Welker, the transfer.
Mm.
So she went down, and then the player rolled over her, and then her knee or ankle got twisted up pretty damn bad. So, you really hope it's just a scare and a precautionary, but I don't know. It looked pretty gross. Let's see. Emily Gaby made it to 2-0 late in the second half again. Vintage Gaby. You do not want a one-way ticket to Gaby Island. Ladies and gentlemen, the NCAA should have been on notice if they aren't already. Gaby is a terror for defenders 1v1. I mean, they said it in the broadcast. When Gaby got one-on-one up at half field with a player, it's like, that is not where you want to be.
Yeah. And against really good competition so far, I feel like she looks even faster than she did last season. There's like, it just seems like she's taken another step in her game. And yeah, you're right. You do not want to be 1v1 with her.
I mean, you've got Sawyer and Gaby on each wing running at you, cutting back in.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Sawyer is so fast.
I don't understand. It's like her legs are like that. When she gets going at full speed, her legs are like watching the Japanese synchro divers. It becomes an optical illusion as you watch it.
Right.
That's how fast her cadence is.
Yeah, and she's unpredictable too.
Yes.
Right. Like she's you never really know where she's going to let go from.
No.
She's going to shoot. You know she's going to shoot. She's not going to pass it, but you just don't know where she's going to shoot from.
Yeah. And back to that, the Gaby, we talked about Gaby against BYU and how she needs some help. I mean,
Mhm.
I think Gaby's got to find that help too, because I mean, and not just Gaby, I think the entire team, I thought in that game, there were multiple occasions where you got to find that next pass. And it was painfully obvious to a player on the right side of the field that
Mhm.
two players on the left side of the field were wide open. If you swing that ball, you've got a wide open attack lane,
Right.
and the person on the ball just didn't find it. And again, that's that part of that disjointed nature we saw, or that disjointed play we saw against BYU or against KC.
Yeah, you got to hope that's the kind of stuff that gets cleaned up
I keep forgetting this
on
is the
film.
third damn game they've played.
It's the third game, and one of the things I wanted to go to, Zach, I'll do the stats really quickly, and then we'll look ahead because so Mizzou outshot SLU 11-10. Shots on goal were 7-4 though in SLU's favor. Corners, both teams had 7, and then fouls, Mizzou 9, SLU 6. Pretty clean game. But we talked about the non-conference already and how this really could have been a disaster if they dropped this one. Because you look ahead, you go to Missouri State on Thursday the 29th, and then you've got number 3 Penn State on Sunday, September 1st at home. And after that, you go to Creighton, you've got SIUE at City Park, and then you go to Xavier for your last non-conference game. That's another it's a road game, and it's another ranked team, and it's a team they've played a lot lately, and that's been a really back and forth battle. I think we won there 2 years ago. They won at SLU last year, if memory serves. So if you drop this game against Mizzou, it's you're right, it's a disaster, and things don't really get easier. And you look ahead, and you don't really see that opportunity for like a makeup game, like a what am I saying, like a confidence booster, right?
Yeah,
Like there's not a
that
quote
they
unquote
you
buy game on
or
here,
a tune-up game,
right?
like as Paul Crew said in the remake of whatever that prison football movie was.
So there's none of that on here because like Missouri State is they're supposed to win the Valley on the on both the men's and women's sides actually, but they were number 1 in the preseason poll in the Valley. And not only that, they play on that turf. And I remember the last time we played down there, the ball flies around
Yeah,
that field. And if you're working on things like we've been talking about with this team so far this season, their timing looks off. That's not the game where you kind of figure it out, right? Like
no,
playing on that turf. Hopefully it's dry. Hopefully there's no like weather or anything like that this week. That's not really the game where you kind of figure it out because it's not the surface you normally play on.
yeah.
And
They
it's
talked
just
about the surface a lot in the
it's
Mizzou game
already, yeah, and it's already
because
going to feel a little different.
I mean, SLU plays apparently on a much longer grass than most. I think, especially Mizzou, definitely,
I
and absolutely Missouri State.
I've heard McDermott say that in the past too. And then Xavier plays on turf as well. I mean, their field would probably be a disaster if it were grass because it sits at the bottom of like, there's a hillside on all 4 sides, right?
Yeah,
So they play on turf as well. So this is just not I don't know. There's not a whole lot of forgiveness on this schedule. Like they really have to figure it out quickly.
yeah. And it'll be interesting to see, obviously, against Penn State on Sunday. It'll be a
Yes.
rematch of the NCAA tournament game, one that I felt SLU deserved to win, but that's
Yeah.
neither here nor
Yeah.
there. Pete, this is going to be an interesting topic. We're going to head down now. I don't, I want to be fair, but I also want to be realistic here. Billiken tennis. Obviously, I have no qualms of like, first of all, tennis is really hard to be competitive in for any program. It's not,
Mhm.
that's not down south or Power Five or out west.
Yeah. Or
It's just,
with a really nice indoor facility.
yes. So I think to me, I want this head coaching hire to signal. Well, it could signal 3 different things in my head, Pete. First of all, it could signal that SLU is just fine with tennis being off campus. being not very good, just a sport to field, to have international students come in, pay tuition, get a little bit of scholarship,
Mhm.
all that stuff. Um, Second, it could mean that SLU has decided that they are going to eventually uh bring tennis back to campus, and this is a kind of interim option to not interim, but like this is a guy who can hold the program over until we can really get a coach.
Sure.
Um, or it could, I mean, SLU has 16 teams. The minimum for the NCAA is 14. Tennis plays off campus. There's a men's and a women's equal scholarships. It's not really a Title IX issue. This could signal that they're just gonna phase it out over the next couple of years, which I think we talked about. And I mean, I don't think it's the craziest option. I mean, if you cannot fund a team, especially one where you're not giving out full ride scholarships, I mean, you got to provide them with an experience worth paying tuition for as well.
If I'm giving the most optimistic option, though, let me add maybe this guy is special. Like
My mom
may,
says I'm special all the time, Pete.
maybe this is the young up and coming home run hire we're
It
able
could
to
be.
make.
I'll get if it's the home run hire, I will gladly eat crow. Not
I just
actually, because
I
I
just
can't.
want that option to actually, or that possibility to be on the table, right?
It should be on the table. I think it
Sure.
absolutely can be.
So
Um,
so yeah, I would love to have him on the show and get his perspective and
oh
maybe
God.
figure it out.
Yeah.
But Zach, when you look at the profile, so it's James Tobin, he's the new head
Yes.
coach. He was an assistant coach at Lindenwood from 2019 to 2022. Went back home to Australia, where he's from, to be a tennis pro at a club in 2023. He's been working for Ernst and Young for the past year, which I think they just call EY now,
Uh,
because all of the accounting firms keep making their names shorter and shorter. He played at Missouri Baptist, where he graduated with a degree in accounting in 2018 and then got his MBA at Lindenwood while serving as an assistant coach there. He also has coaching experience in St. Louis as the lead professional and program developer for Nike tennis camps, as a private coach at the Dwight Davis Tennis Center, and then as the lead pro with the City of St. Louis tennis program. So he's got at many different programs of different levels within the St. Louis tennis community. He's got experience, he's got relationships. So the hire makes sense very much from that standpoint. But you did mention before that the makeup of the tennis rosters is largely international.
mhm.
And so it's one thing to bring in a coach in a sport where you're going to be relying on the local community
Yeah.
to sort of feed you. You look at Beatty on the volleyball side, or Kalish in soccer. Like
Well, I mean, you
people who
look
have a
at,
lot of local
yeah.
ties. It makes a lot of sense. But with tennis, we're not really drawing a lot from the local
Yeah.
community. Maybe that will change.
We used to.
Um,
We used to.
we used to,
When
yes.
Zitch was the
Right. But so maybe that will change. But I thought it was interesting that they went with somebody who had like all of his coaching experience, except for a brief stint as a pro back home, was in the St. Louis area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of focused on the fact that he kind of had not helmed any college program.
Sure.
Just an assistant coach. I mean, again, that doesn't, prior, I guess prior experience kind of informs future results, but it doesn't necessarily indicate them.
Mhm.
So again, but like he hasn't been around a college program since 2022. Uh, he was an assistant coach at a school that had courts on campus. My thing is, you look at like Jonathan. They parted ways with Jonathan Zitch, right?
Mhm.
Which I mean, that could have been just not Chris May's guy. That could have been, program is kind of stale and let's re-energize. But you look at bringing in Justin Stuckey then, and I mean, he was a 15-year collegiate head coaching veteran. in 2019. He was William Woods coached at William Woods.
Right.
Coached at McPherson College. He was a graduate assistant at Wright State, head coach of Wittenberg University.
So that's head coaching experience at 3 different programs at
Yeah.
lower levels.
Yeah.
And I remember this from when we were kind of looking at him this past spring and kind of saying like, hey, this guy's actually a pretty impressive coach. Everywhere he went, he took the program from here, a lower level, and brought it up to a higher level and made it, one of the top teams in their conference. At every program he went to. It didn't matter what D3 league or whatever they were in. And then he did the same thing at SLU. 15-4 was the record for both the men and women last year. And that's a really, really good record for a D1 program that's not well funded, that doesn't have an on-campus facility. That's hard to do. So there was a track record there. This is really a complete unknown. You're just,
And it feels weird to kind of go this route after success, right? You would normally try to find the person that wants the helmet next. I know that one of the posters on Billikens.com seems fairly connected with tennis, more so than I am anymore. Obviously, I don't hold Missouri Baptist tennis in incredibly high regard. They offered me, that was the one place that offered me. So again, I wasn't that good. I was good. I wasn't, exceptional. But again, I don't see it. It just feels to me, again, you're bringing a coach on campus that has no head coaching experience, is now going to coach 2 teams in an off-campus facility. So he's got to have logistical experience in that regard, scheduling. This is a whole nother thing. So I hope he knows what he's getting himself into. But again, as the poster mentioned on Billikens.com said, or as the poster mentioned on Billikens.com, he said, you're not really going to bring in a top tier coach or a competitive coach most of the time, unless you're bringing in a coach for men and women separately. So again, I guess, they sit down and decide whether or not it's at this time is the right time to really try to push the tennis program into kind of the future, or kind of stagnate it. And it seems like they just kind of went for the route of take a risk, take a flyer on a guy and hope things go well.
Yeah. On paper, it sure seems like that.
Yeah. Anyway, the field hockey team, by the way, the new field, not ready yet. So they played their exhibition out at Sportport. Again, I just wish that there was communication so that we could not speculate on what went wrong again. We find out that it was weather related, because apparently the leveling was a whole nightmare. But yeah, I just put it out there. People are much they digest bad news much easier when you just kind of tell them everything.
Right.
So, but yeah, they're gonna play their home opener against Central Michigan on Friday the 30th, which I am kind of upset about. I wanted to see the first game. Selfishly, I wanted to be there. And I'm not going to be there. It's a Friday at 1.
Yeah.
But they beat Maryville in their exhibition game 5-1. They'll host Central Michigan Friday the 30th. Bellarmine will come into town on Sunday, September 1st. Like we said, turf will be ready for these games.
Are you going to make the Sunday game?
Yeah, I should. I don't see any reason why I can't.
Yeah.
Volleyball.
A full report on the new.
Yes, I'm gonna go. You ever just rub your turf? You ever just feel your turf? Just go lay. I'm just gonna go lay on it and start whispering to it.
I assumed you were gonna go barefoot, but
yes. Barefoot.
I didn't know you were gonna get all the way down in it. Yeah.
Yes. I may do snow angels on the turf. Volleyball, man. Volleyball is back in action in a 3-0 win. I figure I'll take this one because I was there. A 3-0 win against Carbondale in an exhibition match on Saturday the 24th. 25-21, 25-22, 25-20. The Billikens had a .294 attack percentage, 5 players hitting 350 or higher. Held Southern Illinois to 218 hitting attack percentage. The Billikens had the advantage in kills 47-37, assists 47-36, digs 44-37, blocks 7-4, and 8-4 in service aces. They played a 4th game just for the hell of it, because why not? It's exhibition. And SIU did take that one, but who cares? Hey, I'm excited to see how things shape out this season. I thought a couple of the freshmen stood out. Addie Bruce stood out. There was a couple of other freshmen that were really did not appear to be freshmen. It's really nice to have Delaney Rice back in the fold. Trinity Luckett will be an interesting storyline. Her development will be the storyline to watch as they hit the regular season, which begins at the A-State Invitational on the 30th and 31st, where they will take on Ole Miss and SEMO on Friday, and the host school Arkansas State on Saturday.
Yeah, Zach. Luckett was the one who, when we had Beatty on last season, was the one who was like, you got to see her hit. You know,
Yes.
like the raw talent here is so good. So I agree with you that she was probably the player that coming into this season I was most excited to see, like, kind of where she stood and whether she was going to make that leap this season or not. So again, she's only a sophomore, but yeah, exciting things happening.
I'm trying to remember, because there was one point where they had a lineup on the front line. It was, I want to say it was Addie Bruce, Trinity Luckett, and Delaney Rice at one point, and it really felt like that was going to be their top. It was either Addie Bruce or Evelyn Fitzhale. But yeah, Evelyn Fitzhale was a bit of a surprise. I wasn't sure what to expect coming from Converse University and Arkansas Tech, but she looked nice. But yeah, they moved the concession stand behind the bleachers, which I kind of like the new space, because it was like right where you would go. The connecting hallway was out the back of the middle of the gym to the hallway, the bigger hallway to go around in the arena.
Right.
So it got in the way of everything. So they just moved it all the way to the other side. But they needed some signage. That's it.
It seemed like they had a pretty good little crowd for the for an exhibition game.
Yeah, it was nice. SIU Carbondale traveled pretty well.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's it for that. Volleyball. Looks excited for the season to start.
Yeah, for sure. Cross country, Zach. Their Mizzou cross country opener is Friday the 30th, so they are getting underway this week as well. The last fall sport that we haven't really mentioned yet.
I know. That's gonna do it though. Again, a soccer heavy episode. Hope you guys stuck with us to the end. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, comment anywhere and everywhere, tweet, retweet, repost, post, comment, like, reply, all that good stuff. Thank you all for listening. Go Bills.
Go Bills.